Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And today I'm going to be talking to somebody who is very well known in the magic community, especially over here in the UK, because he runs a magic dealership, which over the last few years has grown to be one of the biggest dealers in the UK. And, he's got experience as a performer as well. He's a creator, a performer, a dealer, and he is a very nice guy. I'm, of course, talking about the one and only Mr. Mark Traversoni. How you doing, Mark?
I'm great, Craig. Thanks for that nice introduction. Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for coming on the channel, Mark. I really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. You've been really. I've got to thank you for doing so much for the magic community over this last couple of years, especially during lockdown, because there's not been an awful lot to keep people busy, and you certainly have kept people occupied with thousands, probably, of videos in the past couple of years.
I don't think there's anybody that could watch all of the stuff that goes up on Magic TV. I think it's possible. I definitely couldn't, but no,
you've done an amazing job.
I appreciate that. I really do, and it really means a lot. But I'm not going to make this about me. It's about you,
okay.
Of course. And I've had so many people want to have an interview with you on the channel, because I did the thing before Blackpool, when we talked about the Blackpool releases, and I had so many comments going, I want to see more Mark Traversoni. Please, can you find out more about him? Can we get a Talk Magic interview? So here you are. And a lot of people in the UK, especially people that are new into magic, they think of you as Mr. Saturn Magic, which makes sense, because obviously Saturn is a dealership that a lot of people know. But I remember way back before Saturn started, it was Paul Harris Presents UK version, and before that you weren't even a dealer and you were a performer, and there's a lot that's been going on, and I'd like to go through everything. But I want to start off at the very, very beginning, and I always ask the same question to everyone who comes on Magic TV. Mark, what's your origin story? How did you get into magic? When did it happen?
Well, I was interested from very young. You know, everyone had a few tricks when they were younger, but it wasn't really a passion for me. I had a few things, was always interested in magic, always loved watching the TV, you know, the Tommy Coopers, the Paul Daniels, Wayne Dobson shows, all the TV programs. I did a few little things, but nothing major. But I started quite late in life, seriously studying, if you call studying and practicing magic. And that was when my son was 3 years old. And one of the family members bought him a magic set. And of course, he bought this magic set, and it said 3 years plus on the box. And of course, three years old, it got absolutely no chance. So Dad had the job of, like, it was more for me, you know, because it was like, oh, great. I was more excited about this than he was. And it just, two things sort of linked with that, actually, because not only did that magic set come, but also the company I was working for at the time, I was in business acquisitions. I used to be the group acquisition manager for a group of builders merchants. And I was up in Bolton managing a business that not managing the integration of the business that they'd just bought there. And they were a bit nervous of me when I first started, as they would be. You know, is the guy from head office come in? You know, what's going to happen? But after a week or so, they realised, hey, he's actually here to help us and, you know, integrate us, the computer systems and everything. And that's what I used to do. And they said, hey, do you want to come over to the cafe just over the road? You could see it over the road there. So you could tell I was getting there with the staff. They were beginning to trust me. These are the days when businesses used to shut for lunch. Do you remember that years ago? So we went over to this cafe, had the sausage sandwich or whatever it was. And as I was walking back over the road, talk about a coincidence, virtually next door but one was a magic shop. And it's not open anymore. It was Magic Tricks. Do you remember them?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're going back now, aren't you?
Yeah, that was on the Chorley Road in Bolton. And I sort of, magic shop, you know, my eyes sort of, whoa, magic shop. And the only things that I'd really been buying before were like dynamic coins. And I used to live in Coventry, and you probably wouldn't know Coventry too well, but there was a theatre called Theatre One, and they had like a joke shop come thing next to it. And they used to sell just, you know, dynamic coins and all Svengali decks and all that kind of thing. And I was going in there getting those. But anyway, so there I am up at this place in Bolton. And I go in, And this guy's behind the counter, and he shows me a few things. Of course, I bought a few. The next day, lunchtime comes, I did the same again. And that went on for quite a few months. And I never knew really who this guy was behind the counter. He was just there, you know, performing these magic tricks. And now, of course, the journey's, you know, quite a few years down the line. It was actually Chris Stickland, believe it or not.
Wow, okay.
Who was the guy behind the counter at the magic shop. So he was like the first real magician that I ever really got involved with, and he was the one demoing all these things. I remember one of the first things I bought off him was a thought transmitter, and he showed me various packet tricks where you do the thing and the aces turn over and they've all got mirrors on the back, you know, all those kind of tricks that you get when you're first into magic. And he's well and truly set me down the road to like where we are now. So that was the first step really to seriously being involved with magic.
Wow. Now, I want to unpick a couple of these before we go any further. You got into this very late on in life then, compared to, you know, I've interviewed so many people that go, yes, I was knee high to a grasshopper and I was 3 years old and an uncle pulled a comb over my ear. And you're saying that you were kind of in a full-time job, you know, it's kind of interesting that you got into, the reason I say that is I have a lot of people that come on the channel and they go, I'm 25. Is it too late for me to get into magic and become a full-time magician eventually down the line? Did you find it difficult coming into it sort of later in life?
You find that magic's very much a community. They call it the magic community, don't they? So because you come into it later in life, you haven't grown up in the community. So I must admit, it's, you know, I get on with people, you know, it's not a problem, but the journey to where we are now probably would have been a lot easier if I'd been more embedded into the community from a younger age. But being older when you get in it, as you can see, certainly doesn't stop you doing well and establishing yourself in the industry.
Absolutely. So how did you go? Because obviously before you even thought about opening dealerships or creating magic, you were a full-time pro, both children's entertainment and close-up and stage. How did you go from having a full-time job as business acquisitions, did you say? How did you go from a full-time job in business acquisitions to becoming a full-time professional magician?
Well, it all, as this was getting a bit more serious at the Bolton shop, that I'm very obsessive. When I do something, I like to think I do it well. And so the so-called all the early years that I missed out in magic I don't think really hurt me that much, other than I didn't have all those years sitting in a bedroom just with a deck of cards, which the youngsters nowadays, you know, they get highly skilled at their card sleights and things because they had that many years practicing with cards and things. I didn't go through that early process. The sleights I've learned are what I need to learn to accomplish things that I want to do, which you could say sort of semi-lazy, but why learn a sleight if you're not going to use it? But I wanted to learn more, because when I've been going into the magic shop, it was like the natural thing is, oh, I want to join the magic circle. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Let's join the magic circle. So I got in touch with the magic circle, and back in those days it was well, you know, we're the magic circle, you have to be interviewed, you have to pass an exam. As you're new to magic, we recommend maybe you join a local magic club. A little bit different nowadays because they've got the apprentice thing, haven't they? And they've always had the young magician club, but I was too old for that obviously at the time. So I thought, oh, okay, local magic club. So I got on the internet and found the Coventry Magic Circle, and I went along to that. And very busy club in them days, still going now, still doing well. And there was a guy there called Keith Pearson, who you know very well.
Yes.
Who unfortunately we lost with COVID, bless him. And he was, you know, he was always one of those people in the magic club that whoever you were, he'd welcome you with open arms. He was so energetic, so passionate about magic. And he held my hand in the early days. He even worked on the Blackpool stand for the first few years when we started going to Blackpool with me. You know, we started a good friendship together. And he sort of pushed me down the right line. So it started there. Then he got me involved with the Leamington Club. when I was at Leamington, then the skills were progressing. Then eventually, after I'd been at the Leamington Club a few years, I did my exam down at the Magic Circle and passed that. And that was before the days where you did the apprenticeship for a year. That's where you just had to go straight in and do it. And thankfully passed first time, which again, for someone relatively new, if you say to Magic, I felt that was quite an achievement.
Yeah.
To get in first time on that. And as you know, even in those early days as well, I did a few gigs for you, didn't I, with one of your companies you were running back then?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you did back in the day.
Yeah.
We're going back a little bit now. My gosh, we're going back quite a way, aren't we? Yeah, it was even before Non-Stop Kids, that was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was Kids Love Magic, I seem to remember from memory.
Yeah.
And there's a question for you. You know, I get so many people on this channel, they talk about, oh, I only do close-up, I don't do kid shows. And they almost look down on kids entertainers. And I've heard people say, you can't be a kids entertainer and a close-up magician, it's impossible. You have, and continue to do so to this day, successfully juggle both being a kids entertainer and being a close-up magician. Is there any advice on that? Because a lot of people say it can't be done. And obviously, you know, my stance on this, I can think they're completely wrong because I've juggled both my entire career as well. I'd like to hear it from you, if that's okay, Mark.
Well, I would say I'm very good at self-critiquing myself. And you can probably tell by the way I'm talking now, I'm not your, what's his name off CBeebies, you know, I'm not the clown. I'm Mr. Tumble. I'm not your Mr. Tumble. I'm not your clowny, you know, the children's entertainer, the typical children's entertainer that people kind of see. So what I do, it's not me that's funny. It's what I do that has to be funny. And the routines I build have to be funny. And I think I found a way of being able to do that. So even if this is to people watching this, even if you're not that Mr. Tumble, you haven't got to be that character to be successful at Kids Magic. And all you've got to do is look at my website. It's themagiczone.co.uk. That's my performing website. If you look at that, you'll see my show reel on there. And when the show reel starts, there's bits of it where I'm wearing like a Harlequin waistcoat, which like colourful kids entertainer type thing. But I'm probably wearing a black shirt and black trousers because I never did the full costume kind of thing. But I wore the Harlequin thing because it was kind of kiddie. I thought that's what you have to do. As that trailer goes on, you'll actually see that fairly early on, because that was filmed over a couple of weekends. Back in those days, there wasn't the videos like you've got now with phones. You had to employ a camera crew to come and film me. And it was done over 2 weekends. And in between filming the first bit with the colourful thing on, I'd made the decision to switch just to a burgundy plain waistcoat. And the reason why I did that, and this, you know, this just was something I found, and I noticed it as I was taking my son to the theme parks and the rabbit or the mouse comes out, you know, the big character. You know, they're like the kids run and hide behind you. They're almost scared of the character, aren't they? And I was finding at kids' parties that when you're there and you're dealing with 4 or 5-year-old kids, they were like, oh, who's this guy? He's got this colourful thing on. And I almost found the colours working against me. And I found it actually worked for me to like dress normally as such. And I didn't have to be Mr. Tumble or Mr. Lively, energetic, bouncing all over the place, which isn't me. I found if I just talked to these kids as adults and performed funny stuff for them, they absolutely loved it, and it worked for me. So it just proves that anybody, be you, you know, someone that's quite straight-laced, almost I would consider myself as being, you can be a successful children's entertainer. You've just got to find the right material, the right routines. And I found a lot of the off-the-shelf stuff that you could buy for kids. They weren't particularly great. In fact, some of the stuff that I do in my kids show, I do Kevin James's Bowlerama, producing the bowling ball. I've got a talking routine that turns that 20-second trick into like a 3 or 4 minute routine with kids talking to me and interacting. And at the end of the routine, boom, out comes the bowling ball. I do Lysander's floating table, which you can see in the video, which again, I'll turn that into a 3 or 4 minute routine. Still pretty much doing it how Lysander does it. I get the kid up and they do it as Lysander does it with the person. But again, I've got a talking routine with interaction with the kids and everything that goes with it. So I found I was performing more. I've got a couple of puppet routines in there as well. Magic Dave was a huge influence on me, huge influence.
Amazing.
Dave Allen's an incredible performer. And when I saw his lecture, he's the one that got me into ventriloquism. And, you know, again, people think ventriloquism is really hard to do. I can only really do one voice, but my dog puppet that I got off Practical Magic, the Practical Magic dog, everybody loves him. And again, for people starting in magic, it's not an expensive puppet, that one. It was 50 quid when I bought it. It's probably about 70 quid now, maybe. It's gone up a bit. But an incredible puppet. Everyone loves him. He talks to the kids. And again, it's something that not all children's entertainers do. And ventriloquism really isn't that hard to learn. And I say to anybody, just find a voice, a single voice that you can do. You don't need to be able to do 10 different voices like Nina Conti or whatever. You know, if you can just learn one voice, and you'll be surprised how you can pick up the elocution, if you call it that, of the words. It comes fairly naturally once you get a basic routine sorted. I've kind of lost my track a little bit there, but
oh no, you haven't. This is fascinating. It really is. Yeah. So I mean, your show, you know, you're describing things like Bolarama and floating tables. I mean, that's bigger than most kid shows.
Oh,
most
yeah.
Kid entertainers turn up with a, you know, a color changing silk and a coloring book and, you know, a stratosphere and they're away. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But I mean, you've gone to a much higher scale with what you're doing.
Oh yeah, well, if you look at the website, themagiczone.co.uk, you'll see that I don't just come along with, and again, there's nothing wrong with this. I've seen entertainers turn up with a flight case type thing, and they put it on a table, and they lift it up, and it's got Mr. Whoever on the front of it, and all their tricks are in the case, and they all reset within, you know, 20 seconds or less, or just chuck them in and they're reset, and they can do a half-hour, 45-minute kid show from that box. You know, nothing wrong with that at all. But I've always been the sort where I've always wanted to put on a show, so that when I'm not even there performing, when people walk into the room, you'll see my backdrop on the videos. I had special curtains made, like stage curtains made, and put them on one of these spider frames, and they're all hung on there with like Swags and Tail type curtains. On the side of that, I've got a couple of advertising banners. Again, makes it a bit wider. When I open the curtains up, there's an LED curtain that dances around and goes in all fancy patterns and things. And then I've got disco lights at the front. And then I've obviously got my stuff set up. So as soon as the parents walk into the room, I haven't even done anything. And they're met with there's a laser putting spots all over the place, and the disco light above that LED curtain putting spots all around the room as well. Like, the parents walk in the room and they're like, wow, and you haven't even done anything yet. So it's like you've won before you've even said a word at the party. And I've ummed and ahed about doing lectures or teaching. I've released my hydrostatic glass routine actually through Saturn Magic. It's called Zero Gravity, which is one of the routines that I do. Again, hydrostatic glass, do it for kids. Again, it's a 3-4 minute routine, interactive with the kids backwards and forwards. Just to give you an idea, I do a Vanishing Coke bottle. It's the one that kind of looks like this. So it's the proper bottle, not the latex one. So I do a Vanishing Coke bottle routine, do the Bolarama. I saw David Ginn lecturing many years ago, and I picked a few choice bits out of his lecture. And one of the main things that I picked out of his lecture was the tablecloth stunt. You know, when you pull the tablecloth and all the plates stay on.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that ever since. I've been doing that for 20 years now, probably. I've been doing kid shows, and I love that. So again, I'm taking a table with me, a tablecloth, plates, bowls. You know, a lot of entertainers probably couldn't be bothered to set all that stuff up, but it gets a great reaction. It's a fantastic way to finish your show when you pull that tablecloth and you've built it up, you know, all through, because he does it as a running gag. That's the way he taught me to do it. as a running gag throughout the show. So do you want me to pull it? And they all go, yes. Oh, if you're not interested, we'll do something else, you know. And eventually you get to the end of the show and off the table's just been floating all over the place, and it comes down and the cloth and the box come off, and you go, thank you. And you look over and go, oh, we forgot about that, didn't we? Oh, you weren't bothered about that anyway, were you? And of course they all go, yes, we were. And you then build it. Are you sure you want me to pull it right now, today, so you can see? So you're building all this up. Imagine the kids are going absolutely crazy. The adults, of course, are extremely interested, and I'll come back to that actually in a minute. The adults are extremely interested to see that as well, because as an adult, like, you don't see that very often. And you pull it and you get a round of applause from not only the kids, but the adults as well when they see that come off. And when that tablecloth pulls out and you go, yes, I did it, you're in an automatic applause queue at the end of your show, and it's a fantastic way to finish. It's also, and just a little tip for the people into kids magic, I really would love to find a way to impart some of this knowledge actually that I've gained over all these years, because one of the key things that children's entertainers complain about are the adults talking at the back of the room.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know when I first started, I could blame a lot of that on the material that they picked, because if you're doing what I would call kids tricks, and there's nothing wrong with that for the very young preschoolers, but when you're going into the children's party market and the people that book you are the adults, and if the adults think that you're bloody good and you fool them, and the kids love it as well, you stand even more chance of being booked again for something else. So I love doing tricks that fool the adults. So the Vanishing Coke bottle fools the adults, the bowling, we're talking about the adults talking now. So I'm building all this up. And also when I'm talking to the kids at the beginning of the show and they make a noise, I always get them to, I don't tell them to shout, but I always get them to say, are you all ready? And a few of them will go, yeah. So, sorry, I didn't hear you. Are you all ready? And they go, yes. Go, no, shh, keep quiet. Please keep quiet. And they'd look at me a bit weird, saying, what do you mean keep quiet? And I say, no, you've got to keep really, really quiet. So bearing in mind, I'm saying this over the PA system, all the adults hear that, but I'm telling the kids, no, you've got to be really quiet. But that's a kind of a subliminal thing to the adults that, hang on, he's telling everyone to be really quiet. And then I say, oh, sorry, you're probably wondering why you've got to keep really quiet. And of course, the adults are looking at me at this point. And I say, no, you've got to keep quiet because Spike's asleep. And that's the dog, you know, that's going to come out in a little while. I'll say, no, I don't want to wake Spike up. So can we just keep the noise down, please? You know, and he goes, is that all right? And they go, yeah, right, because we don't want to wake Spike up. So immediately you've calmed them down a little bit. Now, you know what the adults are like. That may or may not work. So then we carry on with the routine. We've done the Coke bottle. Then I'd go into the Bowl-O-Rama, and you'll know if you've done Bowl-O-Rama or seen, I'm sure you've seen it. When you, especially in a village hall, if you're on a stage or on a wooden floor or something like that, when you drop that bowling ball on the floor, it makes a hell of a noise. And so if the adults have drifted off slightly during that first routine, when I'm doing the bowling ball, when that suddenly hits the floor, you get a hell of a bang, which again gets their attention back again. And if they start making a bit of a noise, I go, no, remember, Spike's asleep. And then I say, anyway, a lot of people ask me, where did the Coke go? Where did the bowling ball come from? When did you first get into magic? And I say, you know, the first thing I ever saw was this magician, and he got this table with all this stuff on, and he was going to pull the tablecloth. And then immediately then the adults are thinking, hey, he's going to pull the tablecloth. So they all shut up again. So there's all these built-in things into the show, which kind of are really entertaining for the kids, but are also constantly having a little poke at the adults to get them to behave. And you know the old thing the Toastmasters do when they tap the glass to get everyone to be quiet. Well, again, I use that little ruse because I pick a bowl and a plate up off the table and I bang them together just to emphasize that they're real. But again, that has the same effect. And naturally, in an adult's mind, when they hear ding, 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 they shut up, don't they? They keep quiet. So you can see there's loads of little things, and not only subtleties with the tricks, but loads of little subtleties built in to control not only the kids, but the audience as well. I'll tell you, I'll give you another little thing for the people that are watching as well. Yeah. You know, the kids, when they're sitting down, what happens at the kids' party? They're all like creeping forward, aren't they? Or they're not being naughty. If you know, when a kid jumps up, because they're that excited, aren't they? If you're doing it right, they're getting that excited, they jump up. And sometimes they come towards you because they're just getting excited. So the kid's not being naughty. I've seen some entertainers like almost chastising the kids because they've stood up. You think, well, hang on, look, the kid's only excited because of what you're doing for him. So if I see that the kids are, starting to get a little bit fidgety, or even if one suddenly jumps up, whatever routine I'm doing, I'll say, hey, who wants to win a prize? And they'll go, me. And I'll go, oh, right, I forgot to tell you earlier on. Because I tell them in my opening speech that I'm a little bit forgetful. And again, this is another little tip for people. You want, I've even had adults almost tell the kids that, a bit like if they go to a theatre, if they're at school in an assembly, they're not encouraged to talk because they have to keep quiet, the teacher's talking. And I've even done school shows before where the teachers have almost tried to tell the kids to keep quiet. And you think, well, no, you don't want the kids to keep quiet. You want them to interact with you. But my opening routine tells the kids and the adults that I want them to talk to me, to interact. And then we get too noisy and all that kind of thing. Right, where was I going with that now? Go on, help me out, Craig, but where was I going? The competition, that was it. So the kid jumps up and I say, who wants to win a prize? And he said, it's like me. I said, oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. I said, that was a bit forgetful. We're having a cross-leg competition today. If you can sit down cross-legged throughout the show, then you could win a prize. Then suddenly that kid that stood up, or the 2 or 3 kids that stood up, suddenly sit down and I say you could win a prize, but I find that not everybody can do it. And before I've even said I find that not everyone can do it, what's happened? All the kids are sat there with their legs crossed, and I say, oh, you're pretty good at that, aren't you? And then you carry on, and then if someone stands up, I'll go, don't forget the competition. And then suddenly they go back down again. So again, just a little tip, but again, it's just these little things I've found over the years that help. And hopefully you can tell by the way I'm talking, you can tell I enjoy, that interaction and seeing the kids enjoy themselves and everything. And I've got a wealth of little things like that that just really work and, help me put on a good show.
That's amazing. That was a masterclass on how to entertain kids. I really loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Really did. Do you find, I've spoken to magicians in the past, very well-known magicians, and they've said that they can always spot a kid's entertainer that's doing close-up magic because they come across as really kiddie, and kids magicians can't do corporate events because they just don't have it in them because they just immediately go into kid show mode. Now, I know that you work at a lot of corporate events and events of that nature doing close-up magic. Again, do you have any advice for people that are watching this that maybe want to do kids and close-up and they're worried that entertaining kids is going to affect their presentations when they're doing close-up or affect their, their choice of material or something?
No, well, I quite often do both at the same gig. And the reason why it fits for me is because I'm not dressed as Mr. Tumble. You imagine if Mr. Tumble came and he's going to be doing close-up magic around your table, after he's just in a kid show. It's not quite going to work, is it? But the fact that this guy in his burgundy waistcoat, dressed in black and everything, doesn't look like a kid's entertainer, has stood up there on the stage or whatever at this event and performed for all these kids. And then when you've done that, you can jump off that stage and then go around the tables and entertain everybody around the tables. It just kind of works, because I wasn't dressed as a clown, wasn't coming over as a clown to them. So I think if you are the clowny character, it's I don't know, but I'm assuming it would be a lot harder if you were the clown to suddenly, if you rush behind a curtain and cleaned yourself up and put a suit on and came back out, you'd probably get away with it. They might think it was someone else if you've got all the makeup on and stuff. But if they still know it's you, it might be a bit harder to appear to have that credibility with the adults. But the fact that I'm not really doing kids' tricks for the adults, anyway, for the kids in the kids show, they're kind of adult tricks that I've adapted. There are some kids' props in there, but by and large, a good 60% of the kids show is actually adults material, which I've performed for 4 years to 11 years. And anyone who's at junior school basically gets the same show. And again, I hear that from people as well. Oh, I've got a show for 4 or 5 year olds. I've got a show for 7, 8 year olds. No, I've got the same show for them all I do is just, when they're 4 years old, you've got to be a little bit, you can't be as in their face with a 4-year-old. Whereas when you're doing 10, 11-year-olds and they've got that much lip, you're not exactly giving them lip back, but you've got to be, on your toes and as confident and sharp as them. And sure, that, it's, you just adjust the presentation, not the actual tricks, because the tricks are actually adults' tricks, so they're strong enough for any age group. And the close-up, you're talking particularly about close-up, but because I've done those amazing tricks during the kids show, that they kind of know that you can do good stuff. Whereas if all you've done is a colouring, and there's nothing wrong with a colouring book, but if all you've done is a colouring book and I'm trying to think of another sort of, a change bag routine or something, which again, there's nothing wrong with the change bag. But if that's all you've kind of done during the kids show, you haven't exactly set the skill level that high, which there's nothing wrong with that if you're doing young kids. But if you want to mix the both and enter into the world of both, especially at the same event, which I do a lot of that, I get a lot of events for organisations where they've, got kids, maybe they've got some disabilities, or just groups that get together from time to time. And you must get them through your business, where you do the kids show and they're having a dinner afterwards in a hotel, and you go around and entertain the adults as well. They get the evening covered for, if they had to employ 2 people, they'd be paying a lot more money, so they get it covered for the price of one almost.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Mm.
And with all of this close-up and all of these kids shows that you were doing, when did you go professional? Because that's the other question that people ask me. When is the right time to go pro? Because obviously, and we are going to talk about Saturn and dealers and creating and so on and so forth, but at some points, you decided to leave the job you were doing and become a full-time magician, stroke entertainer, stroke performer. What made you decide to take that leap from a safe salary to being self-employed?
Well, the magic side was building up over, I can't remember the exact timescales actually, but when you first start, you would like get 1 or 2 gigs a month, if you were lucky. But I was getting to the point where I was doing 3, 4 gigs on a weekend, every weekend, no problem at all. And it was actually starting to interfere with the job a little bit, because all of these acquisitions, we weren't doing acquisitions every week. What would happen, we would buy a business, you'd have to go into there and oversee the stock take and everything when you're buying it to value the business, and that was always at the weekend. So thankfully we were probably trying to think how many it was, probably on average we're buying about 6 businesses a year probably, I think. And so the stock takes, there weren't that many, and all the work was always during the week. I didn't have to work at weekends, so that was fine. It didn't kind of interfere, apart from the odd few stock take weekends during a particular year or weekend. So everything was fine. But then what happened was, we actually had an acquisition that was up in Scotland. And at the same time, my daughter was just about to be born, and she was born and everything's great. But we suddenly found then you've got to juggle 2 kids. I think you could probably relate with this now. One's probably not too bad, with both of you working full time, and you've got grandparents around and they're helping you out looking after the kids. And second kid comes along, and grandparents are getting a little bit older. We're thinking, they just about cope with the first one. We can't really be doing this, and lumber's the wrong word, isn't it? But you know what I mean? We can't really expect them to look after the second one and still kind of pick up with the first one as well. That's now a bit more manageable because he was older. We thought we can't really expect them to do that again. And I kind of looked at what I was earning with the magic, and I said, you know what? I could, I'm earning a nice little bit now. If I just put a little bit of effort into this, I'm sure I could grow this. And I was saying this acquisition was up in Scotland, so I was away from home for like a week, all week, and then coming back down. So that's hard for my wife that was working full time, 2 kids, the grandparents not being able to help as much. So I said, I tell you what, I'm going to give up and just do the kid shows. And the accountant thought I was crazy. He said, "You're giving up this well-paid full-time job for you're going to be a magician." And,
it sounds bonkers, really.
it's like, you idiot, you know.
But you know what? You made it work. You absolutely made it work. And you obviously then went down the route of performing full time, and you've been very, very successful and never needed to worry about work. But then at some point, you ended up being a magic dealer. Now, I've known you for a long time, and from memory, it all started with you improving Peter Egging trick. Is that right?
That's right. So we're probably about 9 years into my serious magic journey. So, and like, you know, when you said I got into magic in later life,
mm-hmm.
if you started a brand new job tomorrow, imagine you've just left school now and you got a trainee's job at some, whatever the business is, and you start tomorrow. In 9 years' time, would you like to think that you'd be bloody good at that job?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So when people think, oh, well, he hasn't been into magic since he was 5 or 10 or whatever, the fact that, you know, I was in it for 9 years before like the magic shop thing started to evolve, that's a hell of a lot of performing experience and knowledge. And I must admit, when I get into something, I really do, you know, some people can get into magic and they're just interested in buying a few tricks and performing them, not really interested in delving that deep. I must have bought every magic trick off Mark Mason's website, and I was in World Magic Shop. Even though I was living in Coventry, I was like down there regularly picking stuff up because I was that desperate to get the new thing, you know, when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I really did seriously go for it. Most of my teaching was from DVDs because I'm dyslexic actually, and I find reading very difficult. But I've got Tarbell and a few other books around which I delve into occasionally if I want to research something, because invariably if you want to, if you've got an idea for a trick, a good place is on. If it's a coin trick, you think, well, there must be something in Tarbell similar to this. And you see how they did it then, and you can pull some good ideas from these old books. Even though I'm not a great reader, I do dip into them every now and then. So it was all learned over the you know, the JB Magic, the E-Magic tricks, buying from World Magic Shop at the time, over all those years. So that's how my knowledge grew, by buying virtually everything that was on the market that I could at the time. And in those days, it was all the Michael Amar, easy to master, this, that, and the other.
It wasn't like it is now, where there's 15,000 new tricks coming out every hour. It was
all the Jay Sankey stuff, Richard Sanders, you know, all that stuff back in that day. And Peter Egging released Haunted through Paul Harris, and I ordered it from World Magic Shop. And it came in the post, and within an hour I'd broken everything that was in the packet. And I thought, what a pile of crap, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but there was something in my mind, because and I think I mentioned I'm dyslexic, and I actually do think, and other magicians that I know that I've come across over the years, there's actually quite a few magicians that are actually dyslexic or got some form of learning disabilities, that are quite good creators. And I do wonder whether that actually can help people being a creator. Because I remember being at school and being so rubbish at spelling, or, you know, retaining certain things. If a routine's got 12 different, like Paul Gordon's Corner of Piccadilly, I love it. I think it's probably the best one of the best Monty tricks out there. Yeah. But it's got that many. I learned how to do it and could do it no problem at all, but then put it down for 2 weeks and no chance, just couldn't remember it. And I think that's just the way my memory works. So I always had to find ways around things, and I think that's how I became the creator that I am today, because throughout my whole life I've had to overcome difficulties in being able to do something by finding another way of doing it. And of course this trick came out. and something was just bugging me about it. I thought, I love the effect, the haunted deck. It's a classic of magic. And I just love the principle. And I can't remember exactly how it went in the early part, but I ended up getting some more materials that had broken. And I was messing around with it for ages. And I actually stumbled across a slightly better way of doing it to the way that was being taught on the DVD, because the way it was being taught was just the deck physically cut. Nothing else happened. And I stumbled across, because I was practicing that much with it, I stumbled across a way of making the card, being able to like pivot out of the deck. And I thought, wow, this is really good. And I contacted Paul Harris Presents, and he said, oh, can you send us a video? So I filmed it and sent it. And he was like, wow, that's amazing. Can you write up how, because this is in the write-up days where sometimes they used to put little slips in if there was some extra things, because there was no online videos in them days. And because they'd done the DVD and it had been done, it was like, oh, if, we could do this as a bonus insert, and put it inside the DVD case. So I wrote it up, and it was put in there as the extra kind of handling. And it was, it worked. It took a bit of messing around and fiddling. It wasn't 100% reliable, but it was a lot better than the original way that it was being done. And I wasn't satisfied with that. I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. And it took me, because I was a performer, I hadn't got any shop or anything. So I basically got all day to mess around with this thing. My fingers were physically aching because I spent about 6 months every day just messing with this trick, trying to improve it. And eventually, and Paul said to me, and this was the thing, because like dealing with someone like, you imagine you're not, you're relatively young in magic, and you suddenly find out that you're having Skype calls and emails backwards and forwards with Paul Harris. Mm-hmm. Like it's like trying to get in touch with the president of the United States. You think, crikey, I can't believe this. He's pretty much a god still now, but back in them days, crikey. Paul Harris was like the man, wasn't he? And he said, I tell you what, if you can crack this, we'll release it as a a trick in itself. And talk about, you know, putting the carrot in front of me. That was it. 6 months later, I cracked it. And to this date, no one has managed to improve it since. And it's one of the favourite things that I love to do. And so it was released as Haunted 2.0.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, did you kind of think, you know what? I could be a creator. I could start creating magic. I've done a really good job. My first creation, I've brought it out through Paul Harris. Or were you kind of, at that point, thinking down the dealership route? Where did you go from there? You've brought out Haunted 2.0. You've worked with Paul Harris. It's a huge success. What was next?
Well, what kind of happened with that? There's a little bit more to that story, actually, because when the Haunted thing came and he said, right, I'm happy with that. We're going to release it as a trick. We need to film the tutorial. So it was like, oh, yeah, you know, film the tutorial. Yeah, no problem. Right, where are we going to do that? And he said, well, I haven't got anyone in the UK that can do any filming for me. He said, Titanus does my filming and all the tutorials back in those days. And I said, all right, okay. And to be honest, I'd heard of like the name Titanus, but didn't really know that much about it. And he said, yeah, he lives in Greece. So I said, yeah. He said, okay, we'll fly you to Greece to do this tutorial.
That's funny.
And it's like, what? So that's what happened. So I've still got the souvenir. I always like to buy a little souvenir whenever I go anywhere. I've still got the souvenir in the kitchen, actually. So I've got this little Acropolis that I picked up when I was in Athens, because that's where he was living. So I flew to Athens to Titanus's place, and we filmed Haunted in his studio there. And Peter Eggink came over as well, because Paul said, you know, Peter did come up with the original concept. So, you know, it wasn't the right thing to, like, even though I changed it, it was still, you know, essentially his idea. And even though I'd improved the method, it was still...
So was he on the tutorial with you?
No, he just came over for probably a couple of days holiday. Okay. And was there on the trailer. If you watch the trailer for Haunted 2.0, like I've got no experience of tutorials or performing on a trailer or anything back in those days. So Peter takes the lead on. I say, I can't remember what I said. I'm Mark Traversoni. I think that's all I said at the beginning. And then Peter does the performance on the tutorial and everything. But then on the trailer, but then the tutorial, I did it because obviously it was me that did all the improvements and then explained it to everybody. And now looking at the 2 days that it took me to explain that one trick, Titanus must have been calling me every name under the sun, because I know now, filming tutorials myself, if I was having to film me for 2 days to explain that one trick, when I redid the tutorial a few years back, I think it took me about an hour to redo it. The first time I'd ever done it, like, probably didn't take 2 full days, but probably a good day split over 2 days. But bless him, Titanus was great, and we spent a couple of days in. So we had a couple of days there, a couple of evenings there, talking to him and Peter. Obviously, we got talking about the magic business and this, that, and the other. And I do remember when we were sitting in a bar eating this amazing plate of Greek food, something got talking. He said, "Oh, you wouldn't consider opening a magic dealership, would you?" And I said, no, I'm not really interested in that. But there was obviously something in that conversation that made me think maybe I could do something like that. But I said, no, I'm not really interested in doing that. But then shortly after the Haunted episode, Paul had some problems with some other tricks that he was releasing. One of them was Skycap. When he first released that, there was I don't know if you remember Skycap. It's the one where you push the straw, put a napkin over the top of a bottle, and the straw goes through the cap. And there was a little problem with jamming on that. And of course, I looked at it and managed to figure out the problem why it was jamming, and came up with a solution as to how to do it. And like Paul was like, "Goodness for that! You've saved me a fortune being able to figure out, what that problem was." And then a relationship started to form where he would send me all of the pre-release Paul Harris Presents stuff before it was released on the market to kind of just sense check it. And then I'm also very good at watching tutorials and thinking, would I be able to learn that from that? Has it been explained properly? And on a few tutorials, I'd say, oh no, that's not very clear. Really need to say this, that, or the other. And he took all that on board, and that really helped him. And that's when it was, as we were getting more and more involved with that, it was like, well, I was thinking, why aren't you getting this? When things were like, the magic dealers at the time, there's nothing wrong with sort of saying this, because a magic dealer just wants to buy a product in, sell it to his customer, and not have to worry about it. But at the time I was thinking, well, why aren't you really getting any help from the shops that are, are dealing with you at the moment, and it was kind of that kind of answer that, it's not really their job to problem solve a trick. It should be right when they get it. And you can say that still today, which, we can get onto that later if you want. But I think things have improved a damn sight from where we were back in, those days. Even though people still moan about the magic market today, I think people will always moan however good it is. But I don't think people have ever had it so good with magic. And we can discuss that later if you want as to why I think why. But so I helped him with that. And I said, well, actually, why don't you have a UK presence or a base, so that if people in the UK are having any problems with your tricks, they can go to one place and they can be helped out. There was I can't remember which trick it was, but there was something where people they needed something or whatever, and like to ask the shop where they get it from to do it was a pain in the backside for that shop. It was more hassle for the shop, and you didn't want to give them that. So that's when paulharrispresents.co.uk started, and I was then just selling Paul Harris products when they came out, and that was fine. I was quite happy doing that. The turnover wasn't obviously incredible because it was a very tight product range. But then, as inevitably would happen, someone would say, oh, do you sell this trick? Or do you say, oh no, we only do Paul Harris stuff. Or can you get it? And it was like, well, I suppose I could actually, because all the Paul Harris stuff was coming from Murphy's. So it was like, well, yeah, if you're not in a rush for it, I could get it. yeah, will you get it for me then? So it was like, oh, okay. And someone else said, can you get this for me? Yeah, all right. And I thought, well, maybe we ought to stock a few popular things like Extreme Burn, or, you know, various other things that were popular at the time. So I got a few things like into stock because they were being asked for all the time. And then it grew and grew and grew. And then it kind of, the Paul Harris bit was diminishing in that it was becoming less of the product range. And we thought, you know, it doesn't, Paul Harris Presents selling it, and Paul said it almost seems now like that you're branching out more, that you're almost, that I'm competing against the other shops now that you're selling a wider product range.
Yeah.
Because those other shops were still his customers, you know, at the time. So it was like, well, okay, then I'll tell you what, we'll change the name. So I changed the name. And you might smile to where the name came from, actually.
I was going to ask that question.
Because at the time, World Magic Shop was the biggest shop by a long way in the UK. And so I thought, right, you know, what name are we going to pick for this business? So I thought, what's bigger than the world? This was honestly how it went. I thought, what's bigger than the world? And I thought, oh, the galaxy, that's bigger than the world, isn't it? And I thought galaxy is a good word. But then I thought, well, actually, you've got a chocolate bar that you could get confused with. And then I Googled it and I found out there was a rip-off website somewhere with the name in it. And I thought, well, maybe, you know, selling Chinese rip-offs. And I thought, we don't really want to get any confusion there. And then I thought, oh, Jupiter, that's a big planet, isn't it? But then there is a dealer called Jupiter.
Oh, wow.
So I thought we can't have that. And then I thought, then it was like, oh, another big planet. Oh, Saturn's a big planet. And I thought, actually, that goes quite well, Saturn. Because as we know now, a lot of people just say Saturn. They don't say Saturn Magic. They just say Saturn, and it's quite a nice little quick name, rolls off the tongue. And that was it. That's how the name came about.
That's cool. I didn't realize that. That. Sorry. That's great. So what, were you still, when you decided to change the name to Saturn Magic, were you still basically an online dealer at this point? Because you spent a long time just dealing online. I know you've got a physical premises now, haven't you? The people visit you at. And also, obviously, you appear at a lot of conventions and do dealer demos at lectures and so on and so forth. That wasn't the case when you first started.
No, it wasn't. It was literally just a few plastic crates in the dining room. Yeah, that was it. You know, we might have got, you know, if we got half a dozen orders in a day, you know, that was it. So it was very much a hobby business. I wouldn't even call it a business. You can't call half a dozen orders a day a business. You know, it was very.
It was performing predominantly the source of the majority of your income.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, this was just like something. And when you're into magic and performing, and you've suddenly got access to Murphy's product range, and you know, you're talking to the likes of Paul Harris, and you're getting sent stuff to review, you know, to assess, and you're involved with the creative process of these tricks as well. It was all very good, you know, very flattering as such. You've then suddenly got access to all the magic that you could want at discounted prices because you were getting it at dealer terms. It was almost like a dream come true. And it was almost that passion and enthusiasm probably just helped the business grow. And in fact, we built quite a reputation in the early days. And that's where I said people don't realize why they're so lucky now, because back in those days, the Saturn Magic bonus page, I don't know if that rings a bell with you, because when tricks were being released back all those years ago.
Yeah, you were coming up with your own handlings. That's one thing that set you apart an awful lot. Something gets released and it gets critically panned, and you're like, well, I've made it work.
That's right. Mark Traversoni comes along and says, well, actually, this crap trick that you bought, that the creator said he's been working in his professional set for the last 10 years. And obviously hasn't, because if he had been, he would have realized that it didn't work. I've suddenly found out within 2 weeks a much better way of doing it. And here's the bonus page that you can have for free because you bought it from us, you know. And I was churning those out week in, week out, which shows you the state of the magic market back then and the way the magic was being literally just thrown out the thrown out the so-called creators' doors without too much thought, really. Yes, there were good releases, and there always have been good releases. And as you know, in Magic, there's still some slightly dubious ones today, along with some very good ones. But I would say, as a whole, the standard of Magic that's being released nowadays, it is a lot better, and the way it's being released as well. Because back in those days as well, do you remember the month-long pre-orders that used to happen for everything that used to come out on the market?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And what used to happen? Take the Paul Harris release. Say Paul Harris got this new trick coming out, and on the first of the month there would be the trailer, and all the ad copy goes up, and it's not being released until the end of the month. So the pre-order period would be a whole month long. And guess what would happen? You get to the end of the month, and there'd be a delay because something went wrong, or and the business person in me thought, well, hang on, what's going on here? And I thought, I know what's going on here. I bet they're launching the. And I'm not saying Paul Harris was doing this, but maybe another creator that had got a month-long pre-order. I'm sure what they were probably doing is launching the trailer on the first of the month, say, seeing how pre-sales went for the first week, saying, hey guys, this is flying, we've sold X many in this first week on pre-order, right, we'll have this many. So, Murphy's were probably firming up how many they were going to have. Then the creator would, start banging them out as quick as he can. And if there was a problem, then the trip would be delayed. And it wasn't uncommon back in those days for a pre-order to be delayed by 2 or 3 weeks. Like nowadays, people moan about a pre-order for a week. So we had to wait for a week, and then invariably it was late. And I must admit, I'd like to take a bit of credit for being almost the champion that was badgering Murphy's Magic, month after month, saying, look, because the standard of service I wanted to offer to my customers was, I came from a business background, and customer service is like key to the success of any business. And when I was advertising products for a month, and someone was ordering it, say on the first day of the month, as soon as it was released, and then you get to the end of the month, and then, sorry, it's not coming, and then it's not coming, and it's not coming, and it's promised next week, and it's not coming. It's like they almost start blaming you, and I think, well, it's not my fault that it's not coming. It's the supplier, which they kind of understand, but it's still you that they've bought it off, and you that they're moaning at. And of course, I then had quite a few moans back at Murphy's and said, look, this isn't really on, it's not good service. And I went on in it for quite a considerable time. And we've eventually ended up with what we've got now, where 99% of the time now, Murphy's do not put an item out for pre-sale unless they've actually got it in stock. And they'll even ship it to what they used to do. If it was being released next Monday, they didn't used to ship it to us until the release day. So we wouldn't get it until, say, the Wednesday, a couple of days after the release. Then, of course, everyone in America would get it on the Tuesday, because they're obviously the shipping's quicker. Yeah. So then there was a disparity between America and the UK. And I said, come on, surely you can dispatch on a Friday, because then we'll get it on the Monday, which is the release day, and then we're on level terms with America. And that happened as well. And they've even got to the point now where they will actually ship in the week before, just to make sure that you do actually get it in time for the release date, in case there's a shipping delay or something like that. So where I say the Magic market really has moved on from where it was, I certainly feel, from a customer service point of view, from Murphy's service standard point of view, they listened to, what I was saying was wrong, and probably other people were saying were wrong at the time. And although the customers pretty much take it for granted now, a week isn't really an awful long time for a product to be on pre-sale. No. It comes around pretty quick.
It does. I agree.
And gives the shops and Murphy's chance to, promote the product for a few days before it actually hits the market.
Well, I've experienced the whole pre-order thing with the Quantum deck, and so I can see the need for it. It does make a lot of sense. So let me ask you a question. You said that Saturn was kind of basically just a little hobby business. You can't call a business 7 orders a day, and predominantly the majority of your income was coming through performing. You openly said to me off camera earlier, and I hope you don't mind me saying, that you get less time to perform these days. because the shop is taking up so much of your time. And realistically, that whole thing has shifted now, wherein maybe you spent 10% of your time on the shop and 90% of your time performing. I'm not saying it's the same in the other direction, but you're spending massively less time performing because the shop is taking up so much energy. When did that shift take place? When did you kind of go, well, you know what, I'm not going to be able to carry on performing to the level I am if I'm going to make this shop a success?
It kind of happened just before lockdown, really. It was getting to the point. Now we've got, there's 4 of us work here on a normal basis anyway. Then we've got a couple of other guys that work for us kind of remotely, sporadically helping us out with bits and bobs. So there's 6 of us actively involved in the business, which, you know, for a magic business, that's, you know, a fair number of people. I heard the other day, I saw an illusionist video, and the guy that was doing that video said there's only 12 people work at Illusionist. So and sort of thought, wow, you know, we've got 4, you know, that are working all the time and 2 working every now and then. So I thought, wow, you know, we're you know, I know it's not a huge number, but the magic business is not a huge business. It's a very niche market, and I wish customers would realise that sometimes, because sometimes you get the feeling that they think they're dealing with Amazon, you know, when they're ordering stuff. They do lose sight a little bit that, you know, it isn't like Amazon that, you know, if you order it on Saturday afternoon, it's going to turn up on Sunday morning. You know?
Exactly.
And also when things run out of stock, they don't realise that the magic market, a lot of things are actually made by the creator. If you, I'm sure you were lucky enough with your quantum deck that you didn't actually have to sit there and do them all yourself.
That for a game of soldiers. No. But I'm very lazy, Mark. In terms, some people have said to me, "Why don't you release these tricks yourself?" I'm lazy. It's the same reason why I went to Penguin with Chop. I'm late. I don't want to be sitting there making hundreds or thousands of gimmicks. I'm just not. I want to have the idea, work it in, make it good, and then take it to a company who can do all the hard work for me. I'm too busy to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I like to think that people get, you know, from this talk, maybe a little bit of insight into realizing the pain that creators actually go through, because just imagine you get a trick and it needs some DIY home assembly. It might take you half an hour to assemble that thing. You know, following it might take half an hour if you know what you're doing, but it takes you an hour because you've had to watch the instructions and understand and everything. But if you knew what you were doing, you could probably make it in half an hour. Now the creator has then got a difficult decision, hasn't he, to think, well, what do I do? Do I make these? And therefore I have to charge more because I've had to make them, or do I give them a bag of bits where they have to spend half an hour making it? And that's it's a quandary a lot of creators go through. All the releases that we do where possible, like to make them, but then invariably the price ends up being higher, and people say, oh, is that all I'm getting for 40 quid? But they don't understand there's, you know, best part of 3/4 hours worth of labour gone into making it, maybe.
Yeah.
And don't understand that someone's got to be paid to do that. And also, if you do the opposite and sell it cheaper, then they moan that, oh, I've got to spend an hour putting it together. So you kind of can't win there, even though you sold it to them cheaper. But then, if on the other hand, if you make a trick and it does take half an hour to make one, you think, oh, that's great. Then if Murphy's turn around and say, oh, I'll have 500 of them, you think, oh, that's great. Then you suddenly realise, hang on, that's 500 times half an hour. And maybe you've got a full-time job, or you've, you know, like if you're a magician creator, you imagine, you know, if I said to you, you've got to make 500 of these gimmicks and they're going to take you half an hour and do everything that you do during the day now anyway.
Not happening. Nope.
People don't realize the pain that an awful lot of creators go to actually, you know, get them made and done, so that they haven't got to build them. Because it's all too easy to open up a packet, isn't it? You love it, don't you? You know, you've got the box there and it's come and you've opened it and, oh, this is what I've got. But you often don't realize the the hard work and sweat that's gone into actually getting that product to you, because a lot of these things are not made in a factory in somewhere. You know, the guy has physically sat there and made them himself, and I don't think people appreciate that enough, really.
No, I totally agree.
Mm.
And on that subject, actually, when did you start? Because obviously when you first set up Saturn Magic, it was just a dealership. Mm-hmm. Now you bring your own tricks out. You create your own tricks. You get other people whose tricks you bring to market. When did you diversify into that side of the business? When did you think, you know what, it's great having a dealership, but I want to have my own product range as well?
Yeah, well, as we got started to get more established, we started to get people coming to us with things saying, "Are you interested in this?" And that's when it really started. We had, I'm trying to think which was our first actual release, but we had, thinking of one particular creator, Mark Elsden came to us with Forsaken. Which is the card stab, which is the card stab where
with a fork, wasn't it?
And the card is impossibly linked onto the fork, and you can give it away as a souvenir, which I still do. I ended up doing a rejig on that and a redesign as like one of my bonusy type things to improve it. We're now on like the third iteration of it, but I basically turned it into a card sword routine, but using a fork and a card, and then you can give it away at the end, but you obviously can't give your card sword away at the end. So it's, but you get all the comedy of throwing the cards and all that kind of thing with it. So Mark came to us with that all them years ago, and that was one of the first releases that we did. And I must admit, when I look at how that sort of went and where we tried to do the film, we hadn't got a clue what we were doing about how to deal with a creator or how to, do the product properly. But it all turned out okay in the end. But again, very quick learning curve as to how to deal with creators. Then more people would. I came up with a few ideas myself, and other ideas came in. And as we've gone on and on now, when you look at, we had a whole trounce of things came out from early December last year. Well, from about Halloween last year all the way through to Blackpool, I think we had about 15 things come out. So we've got quite a sausage factory going, churning out all these things, which, to be honest, they didn't all get created and suddenly released in that very short space of time. We'd had 2 years of lockdown, haven't we, where all these things have been brewing and you couldn't get together to sort things out, and creators had got time to, work on things because they've got nothing else going on. So there was, even though we were all locked down, we were exceptionally busy. Even though the shop wasn't exceptionally busy during lockdown, we were exceptionally busy on the creative side during that period. And I like to think now that when you look at our releases, when I look at our early trailers, when you've got no experience making trailers, they're kind of okay. But I like to think now when you look at our trailers and artwork and, how we do things now, I like to think we're doing a good job.
Well, if there's somebody watching this who wants to release their own trick,
mm-hmm.
what advice would you give them if, let's say they want to release their own trick and they're thinking, you know what, I'd like to go with Saturn Magic. They seem like a good company.
Mm-hmm.
What do they have to do to get on your radar?
Okay, well, we've got a creative page on the website. So when you go onto our website, saturnmagic.co.uk, there's one of the banners near the top of there's like an advertising banner, then a little bit of text. Then there's another banner with all of us on our Blackpool stand, which you didn't see the stand this year, actually. But
I wish I could have seen anything at Blackpool. I was just basically in the foyer and backstage in the gala show, and that's it.
Maybe when you're in the edit of this, you can find the picture of our Blackpool stand and put it up on the screen, because we have got, there's only Vanishing that have got a stand that's anywhere near competing with ours. And I'm a little bit biased, but I would say when you look at ours being a long rectangular stand with all the backdrop and everything, it looks, pretty slick and amazing. And so we've got, got that really good presence and branding. We are well known now, and we certainly like to do things correctly. we've normally do a profit share with people when we do things, whereas historically in the magic world, it's been, we're going to give you so much money and maybe a few units that you can try and sell to your mates on Facebook or whatever. I'm not a great fan of doing that, because I do think, although you see that quite a bit on some of the Facebook groups, I think, hang on, you've just released this new trick that you're proud of, and it's, say, £30, and suddenly you're on Facebook saying, hey guys, I've only got 50 of these. I'm going to sell them at 20 quid each. Come and get them. Which is kind of good in the Facebook group, and the people love it because they're getting £10 off. But it's like, hang on, this is brand new. And what about all the dealers that are supporting you with, you know, stocking your new trick and everything? And suddenly you've come in and you're discounting your trick by £10 just to, because of the way the deal is that you've structured with the company that you've released it through. I never agreed with that kind of philosophy of doing it. And I've always done Saturn because I've wanted to. The money hasn't been the driver behind Saturn. All the businesses that I've managed over the years have always been successful, and it's always been through driving the customer service. And if you get the customer service right, you will inevitably make money anyway. That's just the way I've always done it, and it's always worked for me. So I believe in doing a profit share if possible with the, some creators just want a lump sum. You know, we have had some in the past where they've said, no, I'm not interested in that. Just give me so much money and you can do with it what you want. Okay, fine. That person can suddenly be having regrets. If that trick suddenly blows up and does exceptionally well, then they're thinking, gosh, I wish I'd had the profit share now. So I always say to people, you're probably better off getting a profit share deal, because not every trick, and again, people have this misconception that every trick that's on our website sells thousands of copies. It doesn't. You know, Murphys do not buy, and Patrick said in his interview with you, Patrick Walford, he said, you know, people have got this misconception that Murphys buy 1,000 of everything that gets shoved under their nose, you know, without even thinking about it. They don't. Some of the numbers they buy are very small, and
Murphys are very picky.
Yeah. And some of the items that are on the website, we sell tiny numbers. There's even the odd release when you never sell any at all of some of the items that are put on the website. So,
magic dealer and as a creator, how can you ensure, if you're creating a trick, obviously your goal as a creator is to make it as successful as possible. Mm-hmm. Your goal as a creator is to get a trick and have it blow up in the magic community, because it's going to raise your profile. It's going to ultimately make you more money. It's going to whatever the reasons are for people bringing out tricks. How can you ensure, and I know there's no way to completely ensure it, but is there anything that you can do to make a trick more appealing, or I don't want to say guarantee success, but, you know, kind of other things that you can put in place to make it more likely to be a successful product, as opposed to one of those products that you just mentioned that never sells?
Yeah, well, that all comes down to the trick submissions that we get every week. There's barely a morning goes by when there isn't another link to here's my trick. And I kind of tongue-in-cheek would say the amount of times that here's my trick has turned out to be a trick that's already been released before, so it isn't that person's trick at all, I've lost count of. And then the amount of times that someone comes to me with basically a flap card that it's his new trick because, I don't know, he's put a dinosaur on it, whereas someone else had chickens. So therefore it's a new trick. And I say to people, look, yeah, it's kind of okay. You know, and I'm saying kind of okay. If this was the first time that had ever been done, you know, with a flat card and a picture, then yeah, it would have been worth releasing. But the fact that probably 100 people have already done a flat card with a picture in the last 10 years, you're never going to blow up in the magic market with another flat card that changes from a, you know, to a picture, for instance. You know, that's a bad example. So it's about, and then those people get upset with you then because you haven't fallen in love with their trick, and you think, well, hang on, you know, it's got to be in my view. But we do see some of them hitting the website. And actually, this is an interesting thing to kind of touch on, because we have this automatic feed that whatever Murphy's put on their website ends up on our website. And you can say some of it's good, some of it's bad. I know there's been various conversations that you've had with people in the past where things that have been absolutely atrocious in your view have then suddenly someone's taken it and done incredibly well somewhere with it. So you think, well, yeah, I thought it was atrocious for what I wanted it for, but yeah, look, this guy's turned it into something incredible.
Yeah.
And I've always been, when we first started off as Paul Harris Presents, it was like, oh, we just pick a few choice things that I know are really popular. And then eventually we went down the route of, well, we'll just list everything Murphys do. And then people were saying, well, why are you putting this on your website? It's not very good. And you said, well, you're viewing it as maybe a close-up, walk-around, table-hopping magician. And I remember when the Rose act by Shin Lim came out, and someone said, oh, but I can't do that close-up. And I think, well, the trailer doesn't even suggest that you can. He's there on a massive stage with projection and dark lighting, and everything's perfect, you know, for him doing this act. It's not a bad trick just because you can't do it closer. And I say that to customers all the time, actually, because they'll buy something. Oh, you can't do this 360 surrounded. And I'll say, no, but the trailer doesn't say that you can. If you look at the trailer, it's all filmed at the same angle, maybe straight on. If a trailer doesn't show you it being performed 360, then don't assume that you can, because and you can't say people are being deceptive by the video that they've done there, because they've only filmed it from the front. They've showed you what the trick can do. It's a bit like looking at an advert for a new car. They'll tell you all the good things about the car, won't they?
Yeah.
They won't tell you that it's got a really tiny boot, so if you want to get your golf clubs in, they ain't going to go in. They'll tell you all the good things, how fast it goes and how cool it looks, and all this sort of thing. So you've got to do your research. You wouldn't buy a car without researching if whatever you want to put in it's going to fit. Or
I do say over and over again, it's down to the end user. It's down to the person who's buying it to check the reviews, check to see if it's suitable for them. Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what happens to me loads? Because I'm very honest. If someone rings me up and says, what do you think of this? I'll say, oh, that's a load of crap. And they'll go, what? And I'll go, yeah, that's rubbish. Now, I don't often say that. And on the review shows that I do, I always say honest. I used to say honest and considered reviews a lot, because I would review things from a balanced perspective. So in other words, if you're a close-up, if I was purely viewing it from a close-up walk-around magician, I'd say, oh, that's crap, you don't want that. But I can't do a review like that on my review show, because I know there's stage performers watching, there's social media guys, there's all sorts of people watching the show. Yeah. And you've got to give that considered review. So in other words, no, if you're a close-up performer, you're not going to like this. But if you're into your TikTok videos or and stuff, or on stage, it's great, So if it's completely crap, then yes, I do say if it's crap for everything, which you get, it's not very often nowadays you get something that's completely rubbish for any situation. You get the odd thing every now and then, but it is really the odd thing. In fact, there was a thing the other week, actually. It was the Moses card. I don't know if you remember seeing that trick. It was only released a few weeks ago. And the trailer looks absolutely amazing. These cards are all like triumphing, changing colours, and he's holding the cards in the most unnatural way that you've ever seen someone holding a spread of cards. And they all, where they're alternating colour, and then they suddenly change to 50-50 blue and red. Again, I was looking at it thinking kind of totally pointless. But then when I looked at it, it was like, God, this is... And if you look closely at the video, you can see the cards don't look particularly good. But if you were watching on a mobile phone, you'd probably never notice. And a customer actually bought it just before I did one of my Sunday Live shows. And I said, I don't have to do this very often. I said, but I'll be ringing that customer up on Monday morning just to check if he actually does want this. Because I actually knew the guy that had ordered it, just because he's been dealing with us for a number of years. And I always say to people as well, if you build a relationship up, not necessarily with me, it could be with any magic shop that you deal with, But if I get to know, you know, if you're buying stuff off me every week and you're talking to me and you say, oh, I like that trick, I wasn't too keen on that trick, before too long, you get to know where the person performs and what they do. You know, I know Craig does corporate stuff. I know he does kid shows. I know he does close-up. So actually, there's quite a lot of things that would probably suit you. But if you know that there's a guy that just performs down the pub for his mates and he's bought the bloody Moses card, and I'm thinking, hang on, and he didn't even ring me up and speak to me. I'm thinking, I know what he's like. I thought, I know what he's like. The next time he speaks to me, he's going to go, that trick was a load of rubbish. So I thought, I'm just going to preempt this. So I got in touch with him and said, look, are you sure you want this trick? He says, actually, I just watched the trailer and I thought I'm going to buy that. He said, oh, no, don't bother. So I just put some credit on his account and he's ended up like buying something else because, again, I'm a great believer that not everyone is performing professionally as a magician. A lot of people have got full-time jobs, they've got families, they've got bills to pay. Magic's their hobby that they love. They maybe allocate themselves a certain amount of money each month, depending on how much they can afford. Some people, maybe they can only afford to spend 30, 40, 50 quid a month on magic for their hobby, you know, because life's hard, isn't it, at the minute with all the things that are going on. And if their monthly purchase as someone that's performing down the pub with the mates is the Moses card, you know, you're going to be a bit disappointed, aren't you? That's what, what you bought this month. And, you know, so that's why I try and be honest. I like to try and get to know my customers. Okay, I can't know all the customers that we deal with, but there's a lot that I do get to know and talk to on the phone a lot. I like people to ring up and talk, actually. And in fact, the staff, when they're working here, it's like, I don't know how you devote so much time because I know when I used to ring round, like you'd ring a magic shop and unless you just wanted to order something straight away, they just wanted to get you off the phone as soon as possible because they wanted to go and do something else, you know, that we're busy doing that day. But just like I've talked to you about little things about what I like to do in a show, someone said to me the other day about needle through balloon. I said, oh, do you sell the balloons for needle through balloon? And I know this guy is just starting to do kids magic. And he said, I find it's going down really well in the shows. And I said, I used to do needle through balloon a few years ago. And in fact, it's still in my rolling box. It's there at the front. I know exactly where it is, but I haven't done it for years. And the reason why I haven't done it for years is because, as I said to you earlier, my show, I do it from 4 years old up to 11 years old. And call me lazy, I don't want to be changing the material. The box I've got covers everything: Christmas, Halloween, Easter, everything is in this box. So it's just there. And I know whatever time of the year it is, I can do it. And yeah, this needle wand thing is still in there because it takes up no room. It's at the front ledge of my box. I know exactly where it is, but I haven't done it for years because I found that when you brought this whacking great needle out at a 4-year-old's birthday party, it was like, whoa, you know, it wasn't, you almost saw their faces. And then when you went to push it in a balloon, a 4-year-old scared to death that a balloon's going to pop. And you suddenly built tension up in the audience, and occasionally it would pop because when you do that trick, it's not 100% every time. And it would pop and they'd be a little bit scared. And I suddenly found that this trick wasn't suitable for the complete age group. Yeah, 7, 8, 9, 11-year-olds, they're not going to wince when you bring a pin out for a balloon. And again, I was kind of advising that guy. I said, well, you know, it depends how you want to go with your show, whether you want to get a show for specific age groups or not. And I'm into offering that advice because I have got a lot of experience in different areas. And a lot of people are new. You know, when I say new, they've maybe only been doing it a couple of years. And
yeah,
the thing that I think about when I first started in magic, if I can still remember the first kids show I did in someone's front lounge, and the dagger box was in it, believe it or not, for a kids party.
Bloody hell!
Well, it wasn't a very young kids party. I think they were about 7 or 8 years old, so they weren't very, very young.
Wow.
And it was fine. But I tell you what, I actually stopped. I haven't done the dagger box for years now, and I was booked to do it was like a 60th or a 70th birthday party, and they wanted it was for grandma. It was her party, but the whole family were there, and there was a whole bunch of kids. And so I did my kids show, and the dagger box was going to be done for grandma. So we were going to get grandma up on stage for this thing and put the dagger box on her head and put all the swords in, and it's all going in. And it's all like, whoa, you know, the kids are wondering what's going on as all these swords are going in. Suddenly one of the kids at the front starts crying as these swords are going in going in the box. And of course the doors open and grandma's head's not there. And then you quickly whip it out and she's okay, but the damage had been done. And I tell you what, that's, you soon kind of learn on the job, if you call it that, as to suddenly realizing what tricks are appropriate for certain age groups or audiences. And so after I'd got over the needle through balloon thing actually came after that. But once I'd done that dagger box thing, it sort of made me think. And then when I got the needle through balloon thing, I thought, no, you've got to pick stuff right, make sure it's for the right audience. And you can say that about various tricks. You know, there's some things that we've released, like the chewing gum trick, the revelation gum thing that we do. Again, it's not for everybody, you know, doing that kind of trick. You just got to pick your audiences, you know, right for whatever you're doing.
Oh yeah, I mean that's absolutely true. And the revelation gum, I'm friends with Tom Mullinger, and I've seen him do that at gigs, and just absolutely, I've been at gigs with him when he's done that, and I've done some of my best material, like my best stuff, and he does that, and all they can talk about is that trick.
Yeah, and I've been to gigs with Infinity, who came up with it. We've worked together at some gigs, and I've had exactly that thing. Some of the stuff I've been doing, and then some girl will come along and grab him by the arm and say, "Come and do the let's say the willy trick for my you know for my mate over here, because the chewing gum comes out and it looks like a little willy." They find it absolutely hilarious, you know, and you think all the work that you've put into doing something amazing, and this is the one thing that they want to drag you over and show their mates.
It's crazy, isn't it? It really is. It really, really is. So somebody wanting to get involved in releasing something with Saturn, the best thing to do is, if you've got a trick and you think it's good enough, submit it through the creator page on the website.
Yeah.
Then if it tickles your fancy and your team's fancy, be in touch with them. Is that pretty much it?
That's right. That's the way we do it. And I've started actually sharing it around the group a little bit more, because it used to be just my decision. But now we kind of bounce it off each other. And because I must admit, in the past, I've like gone, oh yeah, that's really good. But then, and also when you bounce it around the team, you get more input from, now there's more of us. That's good, because you know, Mark just does adult stuff and a lot of corporate stuff, does more than I do. So you get Kieran, you know, again, the stuff he's doing, you know, again, he's got a different angle on things. Harry, who lives in Wales, Lord Harry. So you get all their input on the tricks, and it really helps the creator, because they come to you with a base idea. And, you know, not just my extra ideas that I'm quite, you know, good at coming up with. We end up with all this different input that can lift something that, you know, was a good idea to something that's like really good and workable.
That's amazing. That's really cool. That's brilliant. And what is your favorite trick that you've ever released? It doesn't have to be yours. It can be something else. But what's your favorite Saturn Magic release that out of all of the releases you've ever done?
Yeah, well, there's kind of there's like 3, 4, or 5 buzzing through my head at the moment. I've always got, well, Haunted wasn't a Saturn Magic release, because that was released through Paul Harris, but I've always got a spot for that because it was the first one. When we did Isolated with Kieran Johnson, that was an amazing hit everywhere, because it was like that was fairly early on in the cubing.
You and
the revolution, if you call it that.
You and Kieran were putting cubes in bottles before Henry made it. You know, made his version. You were like doing it way before.
Yeah.
It's. I remember seeing Kieran do it and being blown away.
Yeah, one of the latest ones, which I've been really pleased with, which we worked for 3 months from the creator's initial concept, which was good, but it was just like, well, that's not good enough. It needs to be better than that. And it took me 3 months, along with Mark here, to design and produce it. And that was Showcase, the mobile phone case where you can use the card to phone app or a video to produce someone's force card or sign card from the phone. Which
I will be reviewing very, very soon, if I haven't already, depending on when this goes up. And yeah, I remember I'd never got a chance to go around the dealer hall at Blackpool, but I did go around on the Thursday before, the Wednesday before everything opened. And if you remember, while you were setting up your stand, myself and Lloyd Barnes went over to your.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And Lloyd, just to give you a frame of reference, I don't know how well you know Lloyd. He's one of my best friends in the world, and Lloyd sees so much magic. Like, he works at Murphy, he sees everything, like everything. And he turned around to me when he saw that showcase, and he was like, "That's one of the best things I've ever seen ever. Like, that's one of the best things I've ever seen ever," which is high praise coming from Lloyd.
Yeah, Murphy's are getting that. We've just literally dispatched it today to Murphy's, the universal version, which will fit almost any, won't fit the really tiny phones, but will fit any normal size phone. So that will be available.
That was one of the tricks that everybody was talking about at Blackpool. So I'm glad that everyone else is going to get a chance to see it as well. And Murphy's is, because you don't put all of your stuff through Murphy's, do you?
No, we don't. Well, take Showcase, for example. There's a full case version which physically fits the phone like your proper phone case, which we've got cases that fit about 6 or 7 different phones. And we physically designed and made them ourselves. So we haven't gone to a shop and bought a phone case and cut it around or stuck bits together or anything. We've physically designed and made these to fit the phones and to work to do the trick. Because we've got, and again, from just having a few boxes in the dining room, we've gone to having 3D printers, resin 3D printers, FDM filament 3D printers, laser cutter, CNC machine. We've got manufacturing capability here. So I love to keep as much in-house as possible to make stuff. And so we made the full case version of Showcase. But I thought to myself, I'm going to have to, and again, this is where my creative brain got going. Because we could only do 7 phones or 6 or 7 phones with the full case up until now. We'll do the iPhone 14 when that comes out. But I thought we need this universal version that will go on any phone. So I had to sit down and the original creator idea was for the full case version. So I kind of took that concept and we amended it and made it work. And I thought, but we need this universal version. So again, I had to sit down and design this universal version, because I thought if I don't do it, somebody will, because someone will say, well, I can do this. But in fact, I've got one on the back of this phone here. It's like when we first started showing people these on the back of the mobile phones, people were saying, "Oh, I don't know about that on the back of the phone." But I think it depends what age you are, because if you're like my age, you think, "What on earth's that on the back of the phone?" But nowadays, the MagSafe or thing that clips to your back of your mobile phone is like an everyday object nowadays.
Yeah, it is. Most people use it. Yeah.
So when people are saying, "Oh, well, I don't like that on the back of the phone," you think, well, hang on, it might not be what you have on the back of your phone because you're of a certain age, maybe, but it's a thing. You can buy these things on the high street tomorrow. So it's not something that kind of, I got business cards in the back of there. What's ideal thing to have?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's I was really proud of that one, because it really it made use of our design skills, 3D CAD skills, manufacturing skills, creative, coming up with the idea to solve that universal problem and getting the full fitting case to work as well. I must say, I'm a bit like a pig in muck when it comes to problem solving, especially when I know there's a trick that I really love and it's a great commercial effect. When people come to us and it's just another Triumph or it's just another flat card, or I can't get very excited about that, I'm afraid. And it's not that the trick shouldn't be released, because if it is different, then you think, well, yeah, it'll probably sell some, but do we really want to put all this time and effort into making something that's going to sell for a week or two and then people are really not going to worry about it? I like to release something, like this, that we can stand on that Blackpool stand for the next 10 years and show people, and it's still going to be a bloody good effect, not something that people have, it's just that thing,
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I like to put the time and effort in so the trick's got life, you know, will last for years.
That's amazing. That really is. So let me ask you a question. We've now come full circle. You know, we talked about how you were, you know, you got into magic, how you built a big business as a performer. We've talked about how you transitioned into a dealership. Now you've got to a point in your life where you're getting to perform a lot less because the dealership has really taken off.
Mm-hmm.
And you've started releasing magic, you know, even more now than ever before, to the point that some of the biggest releases of Blackpool were from Saturn Magic. What's next? And what I mean by that is, you said you're very goal driven. You said that you like to, you know, what's on your magical bucket list that you haven't achieved? Is there something that you want to do? Where do you want to take Saturn Magic? Where do you want to take yourself as a performer? Where are you moving forward to in the coming weeks, months, and years?
Oh, crikey, that's a ton of questions all in one question. So if we take the performer side of things, I'm kind of at an age now where, and I've been performing professionally now for like 20 years. And I know the whole okay, you haven't got to be young to be on TV, but if it's kind of weird because some people, when they first start in magic, if I think about what I used to perform when I first started, and even if you did something like dynamic coins or a Svengali deck, you used to get good reactions from it. People would go, "Whoa, how did you do that? That's amazing." And that's what spurs you on in magic, isn't it? Because you like that adoration of and that feedback. You know, you think, "God, this is great. I want to do some more." But when I look back on it now, I think, well, in real terms, some of those tricks that I was doing, I'm sure some people have got some fantastic routines with dynamic coins, maybe, because anything simple you can turn into a masterpiece if you routine it correctly. But I must admit, the way I was doing things back then were pretty much as they told you to do it at the packet. But you never think when you knew that you're crap. But if I look back to that first kid show that I was on about, you know, where I got the dagger chest in the lounge and stuff, I think that probably wasn't the best thing to do. And if I think back to the other things I did that day, and Mum was, you know, quite happy with what I did, and it kind of all went all right. But I think that was pretty rubbish, really, compared to what I'm doing now. And you go on that magical journey, and eventually now, 20 years later, you see what you're performing now. And I suppose all that experience and little tips that I've been dropping a few out to you, that it's the old saying, isn't it? It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And, you know, that really does elevate the performance. I've got to a point now where it was almost like I want to prove that I can do it. And at the peak, pre the pandemic, I was doing over 300 gigs a year. And, you know, and Saturn Magic was building at the same time. So you imagine how busy I was doing that. And so to say I've had practice at all sorts is a bit of an understatement. And it got to the point where I can't do anymore. The only thing I could possibly do would be, and being a bit older now, you're not really the shiny kind of person that's going to go on stage. I'm not the young talent that can go on, that needs a break because, you know, they're on Britain's Got Talent or somewhere like that, where a show like that can really launch someone into a theatre career or stage career or TV career. I don't kind of need that in my life. So I've almost outrun and proved to myself that I could get out there and entertain and do a bloody good job at it. But as you mentioned earlier, the performing side is now becoming less of a priority. And I'm quite more enjoying lecturing to people, because you can impart these little nuggets that hopefully, you see that I've been telling you about. It does frustrate me somewhat at lectures when people just want to see tricks. And I can understand a magician wants to learn the new tricks. And I must admit, when I was new to magic, that I was more interested in the tricks and didn't really understand why the performance was important and all the little transition bits between the tricks. And I think it does take you quite a few years as a performer to realize that that's just as important, if not more important, than what you're actually doing to get all that right.
Yeah.
So the performing side's starting to calm down now, using that experience to help my customers in the magic shop. The magic shop is now one of the biggest in the UK, which I'm quite proud to know that I've built that up from zero myself. My ambition is to pass that the guys that are working for me. I'm hoping that they can kind of step up and carry on what I've been doing. Because, okay, I'm not exactly at retirement age yet, but, I'm always one for looking forward to the future. And I would hate to do all this work and then me suddenly say, oh, I'm going to retire, and then Saturn Magic just falls off a cliff. Unfortunately, my kids have got no interest in magic whatsoever, so I can't see them taking on the business. Well, they won't be taking on the business because they barely picked up a pack of cards in their life. So it's up to the guys, hopefully, that are working for me that will be able to keep the brand alive, going forward for many years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's great. That's really, really good. It really is. Like, you've over the last few years, you've come from almost nowhere to being like a force that, well, like you said, to having like, such a presence at the Blackpool Magic Convention. And it shows that hard work, determination, and single-minded ambition will always get you ahead in life if you're prepared to put the time and effort in, right? If it was easy, then everybody would be doing it. It's not easy, but I can tell you enjoy doing every single second of it, right?
Well, I must admit, you hit the nail on the head there, and it's all about enjoying what. If you enjoy the job that you do, it's not a job.
Yeah. And
I can tell from the way that I look at you actually, and I see kind of the same kind of work ethic in you. I kind of think that I've got. You're the kind of guy that latches onto a concept, and you don't like start on something, and if you haven't succeeded within a week, you give up. You're in it, you plan it, you work.
Yeah.
The success you get, people look at where you are and they don't see the 10-year journey to get to where you are. Because Saturn Magic is 10 years old this year.
Wow. Happy birthday.
10 years, that's a hell of a long time. Most businesses fail in the first 3 years.
They do, yeah. 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows that you're here and you're growing and you're continuing to grow. You're not just getting by, but you're doing a fantastic job. And a lot of the stuff that you're doing is innovative. The lives that you do on a Sunday night, just stuff like that. That's keeping you in touch with your customer base. It's all really important, and I can tell why so many people continue to shop at Saturn. It's because they get that personal touch, and it's really good to see. It really is.
Yeah, thank you. And I like to think with the lives, I'm not on about building a global presence, if you know what I mean. Because to be honest, someone in fact, we do have customers in Australia, and I'm even talking to one customer in Kiev. Actually, well, he's not in Kiev at the moment. He's had to move out, so we do communicate and talk to customers and so on. We do build those relationships with people, which I think goes a long way, because then they talk to their friends and say, well, I get good service off this guy. And that's been the key to the success, really, building up those personal relations. And that's why I've always done it. I always do what I say I will as well. There's no point saying, oh, I'll give you a call tomorrow morning, and then you don't. That's the biggest tip in the world I'll give to anybody that's looking to start a business. The old phrase, always under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
So if you say you're going to call someone at 9 o'clock tomorrow, that's pretty specific, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you forget to call them, you might call them at 10 o'clock, but the person was sitting there at 9 o'clock waiting for your phone call.
Yeah.
And they were still grateful to get your call at 10 o'clock, but it's in the back of their mind, not that reliable.
Yeah.
Just that's one of the very basics of business. Always do what you say you will. Tell someone you'll get back to them next week, but then if you ring them on Monday morning and get back to them, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So it's just simple. It's like anything. When you know, but people fall into all these traps of saying, oh, I'll get back to you tomorrow. No way they're going to be able to get back to them tomorrow, say, for that particular thing that they've just committed to. And then they suddenly realise that, oh gosh, I can't do it by tomorrow, and what do I do? and they think, oh, I can't ring him up, so they just don't do it. But just one of the very basics in business: always do what you say you will and when you will.
Masterclass, absolute masterclass. This whole interview has been a masterclass, and I completely agree with everything that you have said. And it's obvious why you've had so much success as a performer and as a creator and as a dealer. You know what you're doing. You've got your head screwed on 100%. And I can only imagine where Saturn will be in the next decade. You know, I'm sure it will be through the roof. So here's a question for you to finish this whole thing off.
Okay.
People that are watching this, where can they connect with you, Mark? Let's take down all of the socials for the shop, and you know, how can people keep on top with Saturn Magic? So first of all, your live streams go out on your Facebook page, don't they? Yeah, we do Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Okay. So it's on both channels. That's a little bit hard to watch two feeds at the same time, but yeah, I encourage people to, and again, I do it live, which again, kind of blow my own trumpet a little bit here, but I don't think there's many people that could stand up live at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night here in the UK and talk for, I try and keep it to an hour, but sometimes it goes to about an hour and a half if there's a lot to talk about that week, or if people are asking questions, then obviously things take a little bit longer. But I would challenge, like, there aren't many people in the world, I would say, that could stand up there for an hour and answer questions on, you know, the latest magic tricks that have come out in that week. You know, the amount of content that you put out and effort that you put in, that takes time. To keep up with all the new tricks that come out. Okay, you can't do every new trick that comes out, but you know which ones are going to be the hot ones for that particular week. So you've got to get them, you've got to look at them, you've got to try them to get a proper opinion on them. Sometimes if they're that new, I just quickly dip into the tutorial and give a very quick overview and say, we'll have a bit more next week. But to be able to stand up and do it live, because when a review show's pre-recorded, at least, you know, if you don't quite say the right thing, you can backtrack it and edit it and things like that. But to, you know, the live show is it's quite a scary thing to be able to do, and I like to think my knowledge is pretty in depth, and knowledge of previous effects that come out or similar effects. So when people do just chuck a question at me, it's not very often they catch me out. And I must admit, Leamington and Warwick Magic Society, they have me every year for their Fallless night. When I was president of the club a few years ago, we decided to do a Penn and Teller Fallless evening. Oh, cool. That's a good idea. So there's an idea for you magic clubs out there. In fact, it was always one of the best attended club nights on the calendar, because people were wheeling out their best tricks to try. There was myself and Alan Cooper. You probably know Alan Cooper. Oh, yeah, I know Alan Cooper, yeah. So myself and Alan Cooper were the Penn and Teller. So we'd sit there at the front just like they would, and then all the club members would perform their best trick to try and fool us, you know. And I must admit, it's not very often someone did. So that's cool. There's a little tip for you guys with the magic clubs. Do the Fallless. That's a free evening that you get for your club, and it's a good fun night. It's a good call. Really, yeah, really good call. I love that. So yeah, I mean, so they go up at 9 o'clock on YouTube and Facebook. Yeah. People want to find you on Facebook, they just type in Saturn Magic, right? Yeah, and we're on there. We're on Instagram, and what are you on Instagram? Saturn Magic, YouTube, Instagram, everything. Yeah, so I'm not really the social person, actually, because I'm that busy doing everything I do. I've got people that, and in fact, I get people saying, you haven't answered my, like they message me personally, because I'm friends with however many thousand people on Facebook. You haven't answered my message. And I'll say, well, nothing personal, but, and it sounds a bit, what's it this, but I don't do social media. I just haven't got time. We get that many messages. I'd be doing nothing all day, but look, I'm sure you must get a ton of messages as well. I don't know if you've got someone that does yours, but it'd be a full-time job if I tried to. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So all to as many as possible. Yeah. But all the social media and stuff is done for me. I just don't have time to do it. I can't do everything. You know, I can't talk to customers, create stuff, make stuff. You know, people say, "Have you sent my order?" People think it's just me. And the website is saturnmagic.co.uk.
Yeah, saturnmagic.co.uk. And we're going to be on TikTok soon as well.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
So we've got some...
Are we going to be seeing you doing some lip syncing on there?
Some moves. My daughter's on there. My daughter's on there all the time. So
that's funny. And if people want to submit a trick, they can go on to the creator page on the Saturn Magic website, and they can do that through there. And obviously, you have your own range on Saturn, which you can go check out. You ship worldwide. There are many items on there that are exclusive to you that you aren't ever going to put in Murphy's. So you can check those out on Saturn Magic as well. And you obviously also wholesale in from most companies, including Murphy's and Penguin. And
yeah, so
I know you do Penguin because I just saw you advertising Chop. So you must do. You definitely do Penguin.
Yeah, we do Penguin, Illusionist, Card Shark. We deal with the Timesmith guys for their watches and the dice, and yeah, we we hook up with individual creators that don't go the Murphy's route where we can.
Cool. That's brilliant. That is absolutely awesome, Mark. It really is. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on the channel. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I really appreciate it. I cannot wait to see you in person again at the next convention you're at. I'm sure that you'll be too busy to say hello, but I'll pop over and say hello to you. And I wish you continued success. And I want everybody who's watched this to drop a comment down below, because even though Mark doesn't do social media, I'm sure he will get a chance to read the comments. A lot of the advice that Mark has given freely in this interview has been absolutely golden, both on performing and also on the business side of things. So, Mark, it's been an incredible interview. Thank you so much for coming on the channel. I really appreciate it. No, thanks very much, Craig. Thanks for having me. You're more than welcome. Guys, make sure you leave a comment down below. Make sure you go visit Saturn Magic at saturnmagic.co.uk. The link is at the bottom of the screen. Show some love to Saturn. Make sure you connect with them on all of their socials. Check out Mark's live stream on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock on Facebook. And I will be back again tomorrow with 3 more videos, 1 at 2, 1 at 6, 1 at 9. Thank you very much for watching. On behalf of Mark Traversoni and Saturn Magic, I'll see you again. Guys, my name's Craig from Magic TV.